Hey everybody, we have our next experiment here. This is our Epsom salt crystal experiment. This is number 105, Needles in the Janice Van Cleve's experiment book. This one's pretty cool. This one is going to involve, we're going to have some hot water, so we'll have a boiling pot or pot for boiling water at the church. Everyone will have some Epsom salt. We'll have a thing of toothpicks and black paper, and there'll be enough of these little containers for each of the students. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a teaspoon of Epsom salt. We'll go ahead and actually get an exact measurement with this one since it's easier to scoop the water out. We'll get it nice and flat. We're going to put it inside of here, and got a little bit left in there. Then we're going to take our boiling water. Well, it's not quite boiling water, a little bit less than boiling water. It was boiling a few minutes ago, so it's cooled down some. And we want to pour this into our salt. Now, all the kids are going to have a toothpick so that they can stir this in, but it takes a long time with a toothpick. It takes about 3 or 4 minutes with a toothpick. So I'm not going to do that on camera. I'm going to stir it with a spoon. Everybody can get a drop of blue food coloring. Boop. Oop, that was 2. Okay, and then they can stir it up, and the kids will love to sit there and stir it. If they're sitting at the table and they're looking through, they can actually see the process of dissolving the crystals. I'll go ahead and use a spoon, try and make it a little bit faster, because it's kind of when you break it up, break those crystals up, is how they'll dissolve a little bit faster. The kids won't be able to break up all of the crystals of the Epsom salt in their water, and why that is I mean, they could stir and stir and stir and stir and stir, and they're just not all the crystals are going to go away if you have a perfect one-to-one solution. And what you're creating is a super saturated solution. What that means is that there's so much salt that the water can't hold the salt crystals anymore. And if you remember back to a few of our other experiments that we did with the rubbing alcohol and the water, the rubbing alcohol was being absorbed into those small spaces in between each of the different water molecules, because the rubbing alcohol molecule was able to fit inside of those. That's why when we did our measuring solution, we would pour the rubbing alcohol into the water, and say 10 milliliters of rubbing alcohol plus 10 milliliters of water would only equal maybe like 18 milliliters of the combined solution, because that rubbing alcohol was a smaller molecule that was able to fit inside of the water molecules. So that same sort of thing is happening here with the supersaturated solution. The salt crystals are dissolving. The dissolving process is just they're breaking down. They're going smaller and smaller, and they're going to where they're able to fit in between the water molecules. Now, how the crystal is going to form is as the water is able to evaporate, the salt crystals will start combining themselves back together, and they'll grow needle-like crystals. Now, you'll be able to grow, depending on how long of a time that you give it. What we're going to do is we're going to give you guys 2 different ones. You guys are going to get a little cup like this, and we'll stick it in the refrigerator. It may or may not work. We've heard it work. We tried it ourselves. We couldn't get it to work, so I'm not sure if it's going to work 100%, but we may be able to get some small little needle crystals out of our little container with 1 scoop of salt and 1 scoop of the water, and then leave it in the refrigerator for about an hour, and then come back, and what we'll want to do is pour off the water that's left in there, and look at the bottom and see if we've formed any crystals. But they should have almost all of the salt that's in there completely dissolved. There should only be, a very, very small amount down at the bottom. So have them stir it for like 5 minutes with that toothpick. Now, the other thing that you guys are going to do, everybody's going to get a black piece of paper. This one is really cool. We actually have one right here that we'll show you in a minute. But what we're going to do is we're going to take just a small scoop of this. We don't want any of the crystals that are sitting at the bottom of our container. We're going to take this, and we're just going to kind of use a spoon and just kind of paint this onto our paper a little bit. Oops, I got a crystal there. I'll try not to get that on there. And this is really cool because this will soak into the paper, And then as the water evaporates, the crystals will actually form within the paper itself. We have an example of that right here. This took about 4 days to do, though, before you could really start seeing it. This is a black piece of paper. I don't know if you can focus on it and see the fan-like crystals. And if you look on the back side, this piece of paper we actually had sitting in the same spot for a few days. But you can see some of the smaller crystals actually that formed on the back side as well. Those are little itty bitty salt crystals, but then on the other side, it was beautiful spiky fan-like crystals. Similarly, we put some just on a big plate, and this stuff is really cool. It's like a thin layer that dried out. I don't know if you're able to focus on that. It looks really cool. I'll go ahead and turn it over so you can see the other side. Oops, I'm breaking it here.
Okay.
All right, so you guys will be able to do that. The kids will be able to just take the paper home. It won't be too wet. Even if it is a little bit wet, they can kind of move it around to where it just kind of
They can paint
absorbs.
with a paintbrush if they
Yeah,
want to.
yeah,
And
they
then
can
do you
kinda
put the
move it
starter
out.
crystal on the wet, or it's just the wet?
No.
Okay.
No, it'll just be just fine, just like that.
Okay.
But this one, we're going to go and we'll all the kids will stick this in the refrigerator. They can go stick this out in the sun, so it'll kind of dry a little bit. Now, it is important, you don't want it to dry too fast. If you have boiling water and it's just steaming off, you're not going to get very good crystals. They're going to be super thin. But similarly with this stuff, if the sun evaporates the water off too quickly, the crystals are going to remain super small inside of there. So this one was formed over maybe 3 or 4 days. So it was a very slow drying process, and that's how it turned out to be really cool. So have fun.
Patience.
Patience
Yeah.
is a virtue. Yes.
Thank you.